The landing at Tobruk on September 14, 1942 was one of those events that British historians of the Second World War prefer not to recall. Initially conceived as a sabotage raid to destroy the supply base of the German-Italian troops, this landing ended in a resounding failure, and primarily due to the fault of the fleet. Distracting blow. By the autumn of 1942, Tobruk was the main supply port for the German-Italian Army Africa. Located 450 kilometers behind the front line at El Alamein, it was equidistant from both Malta and Alexandria. Thus, the route of the Axis convoys here was the safest. In addition, along the entire route, the transports were covered by German fighters from the airfields of North Africa and Crete. After the German offensive in North Africa was stopped, the British command thought about actions against Tobruk. The operation, codenamed Egrement, was the fruit of the initiative of the Commander-in-Chief of British troops in the Middle East, Lieutenant General Claude Auchinleck, and his deputy Harold Alexander. Initially, it was planned for the end of July, but was postponed twice due to the need to land on a new moon. As a result, the final decision to conduct the operation was made only on August 29, already after Bernard Law Montgomery became the new commander of the 8th Army. The landing plan was finally approved by the Military Council of the British Command on September 4, after the start of the battle for Alam Khalfa, Rommel's last offensive. The operation had two purposes: permanently disrupt the supply of the Italo-German troops through Tobruk, make Rommel worry about his rear, stop the offensive and withdraw part of the troops from the front to defend the coast from possible new landings. The main drawback of the Egrement plan was the lack of options for action in case of failure. Even the evacuation of paratroopers after the completion of the raid had to be carried out with the help of watercraft captured in Tobruk, primarily high-speed landing barges. The success of Lieutenant Colonel HASELDEN. Lieutenant Colonel HASELDEN's Force B, which set out from the Kufra Oasis, reached the Tobruk area by evening without any problems. Rangers stopped an Italian truck carrying 7 members of the Italian Air Force near El Aden, 20 kilometers south of Tobruk. After a short interrogation, the prisoners were shot so as not to leave witnesses. However, 2 pilots survived, pretending to be dead. At about 22 o'clock, the HASELDEN group reached the Mars-Ish-SHIAUSK sector, cut the wire communication lines, removed sentries, and attacked the positions of the 105 mm coastal battery No. 825 on Cape SHIAUSK to the west of the bay. The battery garrison put up unexpectedly strong resistance, and the attack dragged on, and the battery commander managed to report the attack. After capturing the battery, HASELDEN sent a coded success message to Cairo at 1:20, which was immediately relayed to Compound C. This was the turning point of the operation. In the absence of a message from Force B, the landings by sea were canceled. Upon learning of the attack, the naval commandant of Tobruk, Captain First Rank Themistocles Beloya, ordered all coastal batteries and observation posts to be alerted, and 3 high-speed landing barges to be sent out to sea as a patrol. At 11:40 p.m., the commander of the Italian Navy in Libya, Vice Admiral Giuseppe Lombardi, ordered the headquarters company of the San Marco Regiment to be sent immediately to Marsa-es-Shafs by truck to recapture the 105 mm battery. In addition, under the leadership of the Naval Command, a mixed mobile company of 40 sailors, 40 soldiers of the 18th Battalion, and a German naval platoon, 30 people, was formed. All the naval and army units available in Tobruk were ordered to be placed on the piers and at key points of the base, and a company of sailors, 120 people, put on trucks was allocated as a reserve. Battle at SHIAUSK Bay. Around midnight, the patrol BVB radioed that, together with the barge, it had engaged in battle with a group of enemy torpedo boats. At 0:30, the same message was received from the BEV, located at Marsa El Bayad, 2 kilometers east of Marsa-es-Shafs. Here, as suggested by the original plan, 6 boats, Compound C, approached. From the sea, finding a suitable landing site on a rocky coast proved more difficult than expected. Only 2 boats, Lieutenant Commander Sheldrick, and Lieutenant Commander Eatman managed to unload 20 riflemen of the Royal Northumberland Regiment ashore. Meanwhile, part of Lieutenant Colonel HASELDEN's men attacked a 152 mm SP-5 battery located a couple of kilometers east of SHIAUSK Bay. Rangers captured the battery checkpoint and ammunition depot. However, the battery garrison, entrenched in the gun yards, put up fierce resistance. By 3 o'clock from Tobruk, the headquarters company of the San Marco Regiment, led by Senior Lieutenant Giacomo Calato, arrived here by car. In a battle that lasted until dawn, the Rangers were defeated, losing 8 people killed, 10 seriously wounded, and 32 captured. Lieutenant Colonel HASELDEN was killed behind a machine gun. After sunrise, the SP-5 battery was able to open fire on the enemy ships. At about 3:30, the next group of British torpedo boats approached the area of SHIAUSK Bay with landing forces. She was fired upon by the BDB, and a little later, by coastal batteries and destroyers that left the bay. One of the boats was seen heading east with flames on board and a long trail of smoke. At 5:45, 3 more boats tried to approach SHIAUSK Bay, but artillery fire prevented them from approaching the shore, landing north of Tobruk. At about 1 a.m., the destroyers of Force A approached Tobruk, but due to the lack of navigation lights, they could not orient themselves. In the meantime, by 3 o'clock, the rest of the boats of Connection C finally gathered at the entrance to Bomba Bay, but found that the entrance to it was blocked by a boom. For some reason, its presence was not expected in the plan of the operation. 3 boats fired torpedoes at the harbor, but did not hit anywhere. Having found the enemy, the Italians illuminated the boats with searchlights and opened fire, as a result of which the motorboat ML 353 was sunk. At 3 o'clock, another air raid on Tobruk ended, and at the same time, the destroyers of the Compound A finally found a dim red signal on the shore. Alas, it was lit not in Marsa Mrera Bay, but in Marsa El Adda, 5 kilometers to the west. The destroyers Zulu and Psyche approached the shore for 15 cabs and around 3:30 began to launch landing boats and boats. However, due to bad weather, only half of the boats were sent to the shore. In addition, several landing boats had their engines stalled, and they were unable to either reach the shore or return to the ships. The sick came closer to the shore to provide support to the landing, but could only raise people from several boats and boats that were left without a move. Only about 150 Marines under the command of Major Jack Hadley made it to shore. During the landing boats and boats were illuminated by searchlights and then came under fire from the guns of the 2nd Italian Anti-Aircraft Regiment, firing from a distance of 700 meters. 50 Carabinieri joined, led by the commander of the 18th Battalion. Closer to dawn, part of the battalion from the San Marco Regiment deployed here. In the morning, Major Hadley and 22 Marines who had taken refuge in a ravine surrendered to the Italians. In total, according to Italian data, 65 prisoners were captured north of Tobruk. The defeat of the landing. In the meantime, at 5:30, the destroyers Castor and Montanari, sent from the harbor, arrived at the landing site north of Tobruk, while 3 German minesweepers romboats of the 6th Flotilla, along with 5 BDVs, headed for the battlefield in the east. The minesweeper R-10 discovered and captured the torpedo boat MTB 314 off the coast. Trying to leave the battlefield, 117 people were taken prisoner on it. A few dozen more paratroopers were raised from the water by Italian destroyers and BDB. Also, the Axis ships intercepted 2 damaged boats that were trying to leave towards Alexandria. At 7:40, the last Force B commandos at Battery 825 at Cape SHIAUSK began to surrender. Many hastily changed from German to British uniforms, taken from their dead to avoid being shot. Only 10 Rangers of the HASELDEN group were able to escape from the ground group, of which 4 got out to their lines. In total, 30 prisoners were taken during the fighting in the Marsa-Ish-SHIAUSK region. Another 50 were captured during subsequent sweeps and on boats. Rear Admiral Giuseppe Lombardi was awarded the Military Order of Savoy for the defense of Tobruk.